Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and along with my good friend and co-host Tyler Gould, we're excited to welcome you to our little podcast project. Tyler and I are just a couple of middle-aged husbands and dads driven to live our best lives. We want to be better every day, so here we'll be sitting down with great people. Not famous people, but great people that we admire, to learn their secret to living the rich life. Probably not the rich life you're thinking of. Our guests come in humbled and surprised at the invitation and hopefully leave feeling proud and grateful, realizing just how good they really have it. So pull up a chair, stay a while, and raise a glass with us as we toast our guests to the richest men in town.
Mike Freeman, talk to me about Gordon DeWitt, man. We just ended some time with the guy, and I felt like time was jamming. We were having a good time, and now we've got to have Gordon back on with us. Talk to me about your experience tonight.
Well, we know the time goes fast, right? We know we get things started, and it's just a matter of like, you know what, like we're gonna hunt that guy down. I worked hard to get him for part one, right? But like he's got more of the iceberg that we've got to hear. Like tonight was so powerful because we start out jovial company, right? We're having a good time, and it turns out that there's some depth, there's some deep waters to Gordon's experience, Gordon's journey with his wife, right? Lynn, like props to her. I gotta meet that woman. But just some of the nuggets that he shares, you know, that message that there's a way back, that message that promises are true and sure, even when we can't see him, right? When we're in that swirling storm, and he's had some storms, man. The load that the DeWitts carry, he shares. He's well acquainted with pain and suffering and loss, and he's turned that into a cool way of being of service to those around him.
Yeah, I love how candid he was just about, you know, youthful arrogance and
delusion.
Delusion. And
delusion.
You know, he has a great sense of humor and a great perspective on that time of his life, and shares some really funny, interesting, and impactful stories about how he ends up where he is, and just how, you know, he talks a little bit at the end there about how God prepared him to meet his wife and his wife to meet him. And it was just a powerful few hours with Gordon, man. And a different kind of power, right? We've had some dramatic, we've had some radical and some transformative stories as of late. And here we've got a guy who's like, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Opportunity to, you know, be a youth pastor. Sure.
Yeah.
I'll get in there and I'll do that. And faith looks different. I mean, he has some moments. What did he call it? Dynamic God moments.
Yeah. Right.
That definitely propelled him and moved him along in this faith journey. But we really learn through hard times. And that's what Gordon lets us in on a little bit.
Yeah, I agree, man. I appreciate you bringing Gordon into the lab with us tonight, and to spend some time together. It's so much fun to meet people and have these kind of conversations with people I've never met before. And man, what a treat tonight. So I hope that our listeners are going to spend some time. Look, feel free to laugh, enjoy yourself with Gordon, but pick up on some of those nuggets that he lays down, because they're real and they're gems and they're transformative. So,
and they're hard earned.
And they're hard earned. Absolutely. So to our listeners, enjoy your time tonight with Gordon DeWitt on this episode of The Richest Men in Town. Wow. Well, that's fantastic, man. I'm excited about your secret trip to Las Vegas in February that you've just announced to the world. And the two people that will not be able to spoil this are both Ricky and Kelly. So that's great. There you go.
Our secret is safe now.
Yeah, it is safe. This is the vault.
This is the vault.
The vault.
Well, we call it free therapy, so it might as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's several hundred listeners per day, and not one of them is our wife. So it's beautiful. It's a perfect thing. Perfect thing. So
okay, let me tell you about this guest. Let me tell you about this guest, Tyler. Everywhere I go in Redding, right?
Yes.
Well, not everywhere, but there's enough people that know about the richest men in town. Through our marketing department. Shout out to the third floor of our building with the marketing department.
Those guys are tearing it up.
They are killing it lately.
Yeah.
Everyone is coming up to me. It's like, oh man, you got that. You're the guy with the thing, right? You're the guy with the thing. Hey, you need to talk to Gordon DeWitt.
Yeah.
Gordon DeWitt we run in some of the same circles, right? He's doing some great work for an organization called Reach Higher Shasta, and we can maybe get into some of that. But everywhere I go, you got to talk to Gordon DeWitt, man. Gordon DeWitt is the perfect guest. Guess who we have on the show tonight, Tyler Gould?
Do not tell me it's Gordon DeWitt.
Finally, it is Gordon DeWitt.
Gosh. Here we go.
It is almost like Christmas is coming early, right? First, last week, Jonathan Anderson, finally. And now, the Gordon DeWitt.
On
the
Gordon
program.
DeWitt. I'm excited. I know nothing about Gordon DeWitt at all, but a few texts that we exchanged last night that you shared with me. And based on that 140 words in those texts, I'm intrigued and I'm excited. So
yeah, I basically went up to him after all of this feedback I was getting from other people. I basically went up to him, shook his hand, and started probing a little bit, asking some questions. He started showing me his cards a little bit.
Okay.
And I was like, I need to stop you right here. Little disclaimer. I got a podcast called Richest Men in Town, and you are getting into that territory. And boom, here we are.
I love it. I'm excited about that probing that was successful. And I'm excited to have a conversation with Gordon.
Let's get Gordon back in here. Let's get Gordon in here and continue the probing.
Okay, let's do it. And just to FYI, we'll let our legal department work that out. All right. So I think that's floor 6 of the building. But
yeah, we're not going to hit him with that champing stuff, right?
I mean, look,
he doesn't need to be privy to everything we talked about before he jumped on,
But I do feel like I owe it to people now when they say, man, I am so excited about that. I am literally chomping at the bit. And I'm like, you should maybe use that phrase in the correct way, and I look very pretentious, and yet I feel really good about myself in those moments. So,
Gordon DeWitt, welcome to the Richest Men in Town, brother. How are you?
Guys, what's going on? It's good to see you guys. Thanks for having me.
Gordon, it can only go up from here, Gordon. So there we go.
Gordon, I'm excited to meet you. Welcome to the Richest Men in Town. Mike tells me a lot about you, and he speaks very highly of you. And
someone lied to him. Someone lied to him.
A whole bunch of people have been lying to me, Gordon, because here's how this goes. I go about doing my business, and people are coming up to me, and it keeps coming like, you got to talk to Gordon on your thing. Hey, you got that podcast thing. Gordon DeWitt needs to be on your short list of people. And it's like, well, you know what? We got a long list, but I'll move Gordon to the top. How about that? So I appreciate your willingness to jump on with us tonight, man. I can't wait.
People are very kind. But yeah, nice to meet you. Tyler, right?
Yeah. Very good to meet you, Gordon. I'm excited about where we're going to go tonight. And quite frankly, I don't know where that is, but I'm excited to find out, man. So,
well, I think it's official. I wasn't sure this was official, but I see your wall art back there, which means that it is official.
It is very official. Yeah.
I mean, you made that before you let me on the Zoom.
I have a blowtorch actually right next to my desk here. And
some tin snips, and a Sharpie, a couple Sharpies, not a problem.
That's it, man. That's how we roll.
Well, I am reading. I think I've talked about this, Tyler. I'm reading a book called "The Gift of Influence" by Tommy Spalding, and when I think of influence, I think of folks doing work like Gordon's doing, and Gordon, I appreciate your commitment to our community. You're doing some pretty cool things, and our circles sometimes run into one another. But this is not a work meeting. We're about trying to get into like how Gordon DeWitt became the guy that he is today. And so we appreciate your time, and we want to jump right in, man. We want to jump right into this. I don't know if you are a fan of Christmas movies and if you've got your favorites, but we are coming up on the season. Halloween's officially behind us. Tyler, Kelly Freeman has given me a green light on the eggnog. So it is officially eggnog season. Which is great.
I'm still plowing through the Thanksgiving movies before we get to Christmas movies.
No, Thanksgiving's like that tossed aside now, right? It's tossed aside. We're all moving on. But we love this idea of George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life, and that's the title of the show, The Richest Men in Town. It comes from that closing scene. But that movie starts at a frozen pond, right? And George Bailey's childhood. And we'd love to jump in, Gordon, to where's home for you? Where did you grow up? Talk to us a little bit about what that looked like.
Yeah, before I answer that question, this will potentially lower your listener count. I bought eggnog prior to Halloween.
Wow.
And I'm going to go Elf as my number one Christmas movie, which some people don't consider a Christmas
strong
movie.
move.
So
Strong move.
That may have just told you a lot about me. So
Yeah.
So grew up here in Reading. My parents moved from Southern California in April of 1976. Lo it be on September 23rd, 1976, I entered the world at Shasta General, which was on Breslauer. Different use of some of those buildings than it's configured today. So grew up in Reading. Have 5 siblings. My dad was a truck driver pretty much my whole life. And my mom, pretty much from all the time I remember, worked out at Centerville Community Water Services District on Placer. And so I remember a lot of summers, the workers out there being kind enough to let me hop in the truck with them and learn what water meters were. They were more than happy to let me dig holes. Right? Yeah, riveting stuff. Let me tell you, the engineering, you'd be blown away. But grew up. There's 12 years between me and the next sibling, so pretty much grew up by myself. Back like kids grew up that are the same age as me. Country Heights, which is on the west side of town, wasn't there. So it was quads, bikes. Before there was paintball, we were wearing 2 sets of sweatsuits and shooting each other's with pellet guns and BB guns and hoping to not hit the face. I still have use of my eyes, which is good, and most of my teeth. So that's positive. Pretty much pretty standard, man. Pretty standard childhood. But yeah, Shasta County kid, Reading kid.
Wow, I love it, man. That's like that's the way back.
That's like the what is it? A Christmas Story. When you get into like shoot your eye out, the stuff, right? I mean,
it's true. How we didn't is it's crazy. It's a miracle.
Yeah,
man, we should have that conversation, right? Crazy things that we did as a kid and just like how we survived. My brother
should we
and
have
I,
that conversation? Should we?
I think the statute of limitations is up, right? My brother and I, he would hold a Nerf football, I would hold a Nerf football, and we would take those pointy lawn darts.
Yes.
And you'd roll them up in the air, and the purpose was like to catch it with the Nerf football.
That is smart.
Yes. That kind of sounds like a lot of fun. And we didn't have those, but I would totally do that.
That is that is brilliant. Yeah, I love it.
Hopefully we can cut this part out. But I wondered. I was a major pyro as a child, and we had the old school garage door, that came up like this, so you could stand under it. And I didn't think much about this at the time, but we had a full can of gas, and I thought that and I was all of whatever 5 foot whatever at 12 years old, and I wanted to see what would happen if I dropped a lit match into a full gas can. It was again, the fact that I'm here is some sort of miracle. I finally got it to drop in there after several times, perhaps the first trick shot I ever tried. And then
perhaps the universe trying to save you, right?
I needed to be protected. This is what happens when your parents are just working and they're gone and you're just raising yourself, man. This is what happens. But it more flamed, like if you've ever seen, some science thing where they get the 5-gallon water jug and they do the thing and then they throw a match in there and it like kind of shoots out like rocket propulsion. That's kind of all that happened. It did create an insane amount of black smoke on the inside of the garage door, which my dad happened to notice the next time he was home. So that was awkward, trying to explain without, losing my life or getting too many consequences. So
Wow,
Yeah,
that
I
is
was maybe
fantastic.
45 and I was holding a gas can in my burn pile wasn't going. And so I thought, let's get this thing going a little bit. And I'm
Yes.
holding the gas can pouring onto a fire.
Oh my
And my
gosh.
wife comes out and informs me that that's not very smart.
I thought you were like, that was the purpose of Boy Scouts, right? Like
You're talking
everything
to
I
a,
learned about
you're
gas,
talking to a weebelo.
everything I learned about gas or starting a fire had to do with a gas can, right? A
Yes.
flaming pine cone, and so you're crazy.
You just seem smart to me, Mike. Like you had a problem and you were solving it. So I sign off. I sign off.
All right. So note to self, you guys should not do home improvement projects together, right? Because something is going down.
Yeah.
True. There's a burn pile.
I could tell you, just increase the budget like 2 or 3-fold. Whatever the project's supposed to cost, I'm gonna need some more resources allocated for sure.
It's so good.
Nice.
I learned the hard way that when you're installing blinds, it's good to have the blinds down before you cut the extra cord they give you.
That's amazing. You know what?
And you know what you do.
Teach us. You know.
You know
Here's
what
the
you
thing.
do.
I consider Mike one of my brightest friends. And now I'm like, dang it.
I told you, lowering the listener count, making you both dumber. Yeah, this is not a good partnership, man. It's not a good. I will not be this will not become a 3-host podcast.
And this is why I'm going to hell, because I just took the blinds down, put them in the box, and took them to Home Depot and said that it didn't work.
Oh, yep. Yeah, these are broken. I don't know what you sold me. I've
the
done
next
that.
guy walking through down the aisle gets the taped up box of blinds and he's like, sweet, 20% off.
Open box discount. This is amazing.
Right. Wow.
So good. Sorry guys.
That's great. I love it.
So talk to me about lessons learned from mom and dad.
I would say probably the main one would just be work ethic. How to achieve what you want in life. You need to work for it. You need to put in the time for it. My mom was, committed and faithful to her job for a lot of years. I think 28 years she worked out there. So, and I mean, she was there, back when you could go to work sick. She was at work. She wasn't missing work for anything. She was, doing her job and serving customers, and those people of the West Side, that was her community, serving them. So but that idea of being committed to the job that you had, being faithful and loyal, and then just hard work, that if you want something, you got to go earn it. While it did not involve farming, golfers will say, you want to get good, you go dig it out of the dirt. So and that was one of the that would probably be the thing that my dad certainly taught me.
So we know you had a passion for pyrotechnics.
Indeed.
What's bouncing around in the head of young Gordon DeWitt as far as career and making a buck?
Yeah, I was delusional, like many young men. This happened to be right during the first three-peat of the Chicago Bulls, and had I don't know, 3 or 4 pairs of Jordans to that point, and so I was convinced that I was going to join him in the NBA someday, and especially at the stature of 5'10", with minimal. I could hang at probably the Y. That was probably the basketball level that, I spent pretty much every night of my senior year at Gervan Park there with those chain nets. And sometimes the West Valley basketball team would be there. But that's what I was doing, man. I was convinced. I didn't really know about college. Neither of my parents went to college. So it wasn't like, oh, I should go play this in college. I was somehow going from Redding, California, having gone to Christian school my whole life, straight to the NBA. I mean, we're talking like, LeBron,
You and Kevin
or
Garnett,
Kobe
right?
style. Kevin Garnett. Oddly enough, I was at Kevin Garnett's very first NBA game because I happened to be in Dallas, Texas at the time. And oddly enough, you bought the tickets. The largest distributor of Mavs tickets during that time was Dillard's, which was a department store, which may still exist. Yeah. But anyway, weird fact, which you didn't even ask. But yeah, so very, very delusional. But I did appreciate money. So my first job, not a lot of people are going to know what I'm about to say or have any memory of this. So Sunset Plaza, which sits at Eureka Way and Buenaventura, where Sunset Urgent Care is, that used to be a Dairy Queen when I was a sophomore in high school. And that was my very first job. And I remember, talking to the owner and him just, they had only been open probably 6 months and being amped about the traffic for people either going to the lake or coming to the lake. Well, about 6 months later, that traffic never decided to stop into the store. So I was forced to find another job, which I found one of the loves of my life, the double Western at Carl's Jr. And so Carl's Jr. was the second job, and worked there for I don't know, a year and a half or so. And then kind of did what everybody does, detailed some cars at the place that was across from Crown Motors. No idea if that's still there. Turned into a big boy at 18, put on a suit from JC Penney, freshly ironed by my mother, down at the EDD. I don't even know what that stands for, employment something, because Red Robin was opening in 1994, and they were holding their interviews there.
And they're big on suits, I think.
Robin, right? I was the first one hired. Oddly enough, first one hired. They were impressed. People got impressed by those things back in the day.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Some kid decides to, borrow his mom's Ford Tempo and get a suit from JC Penney. Like, you reward that.
That's like 100%.
That's like,
absolutely.
Hey, we need to give this kid a chance. Like, he's special. So he's eaten a lot of paint chips and tried to burn his parents' house down, but like, let's give him a shot. And so, worked at Red Robin for, probably about a year, and then ended up rolling off to college, to a small college in Texas. But that was kind of, and then, I don't know that my plans kind of stopped. I don't know that they stopped in a painful way, realizing that, I wasn't going straight to the NBA, more than they just dissipated, like a mist, if you will. Or perhaps I got a concussion at some point in my life. But that was kind of the story. So then, life just kind of moved on. It was like, okay, I want money. You work to get money. Let's figure out how to do that. So
the ultimate test of a quality of a burger is if you could spend your time working in the making of the burger and still love it.
Amen.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the idea that you could work at Carl's Jr. and still claim the greatness of the Western bacon cheeseburger. That's how great that is. And
just for clarity, I do love the Western, but it's the double Western. Yep. And here's the reason why. That
so number 4.
Again, I'm probably going to get profiled by the FBI for my psychosis, but the proportion of barbecue sauce on the Western is actually too much. And they can't really get it right. So that's why you get the double, because it's actually the perfect amount of barbecue sauce. You don't have to do any tricking up when you order. So, but the double Western, man, I made it. I probably made, I don't know, 500 of them in my life. And no, I'm still about it. It's still my thing.
Awesome. If you know, right? If you know, and if you're international listener and you're like, what's going on? Get a visa and come over and figure this thing out, man. These things are amazing.
I mean,
and if you land on the West Coast, on the East Coast, go to Hardee's. They got a sister company. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a Carl's Jr. in France somewhere. It's like
in Uganda.
I would hope so.
It's gotta be
Tanzania. Come on now. But the secret is you got to get the crisp cut. Don't come at me with regular fry.
1,000.
You got to
1,000%.
Every once in a while, I'll be in the drive-thru. Kelly and I will be engaged in a conversation. I will get distracted, and I will forget to order the crisp cut, and you might as well just go throw the thing in the trash.
Can I just ask real quick here? I
Agreed.
mean, is this too invasive if I ask your age, Gordon?
I just turned 47.
47. Okay. I'm just curious because I am 48, and I feel like the Western bacon cheeseburger has almost been deleted from my menu. It's that thing that I do enjoy it, but it hits hard. It hits real hard these days.
I do hear that. I do hear that. And to be fair, in the last year, I've had to try to reclaim dominion over fitness and nutrition. So while I'm not John Mayer, I have treated my body as a wonderland, thanks to the Double Western.
Well, it is a siren song, that old Double Western, right? So
she's a seductress, man. She sits up there on the roof. You driving on Cypress, she's calling out to you. Come on now. Come on.
I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for it. I cannot claim dominion over that.
Yeah. And the waffle fry. You are 1,000% right.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm really hoping that tomorrow, Mike, in our advertisers pitch that we have to Carl's Jr., that this episode really helps out, right? Like I'm really hoping
we might.
And if you need me to join, perhaps a YouTube series or something, go TikTok series going around, to Uganda or other places. I do have a passport, and you need me to go find out, kind of like when Jimmy Kimmel sends Guillermo, to the Oscars or whatever, or the NBA finals. I'm in. I'll just give a blanket yes. My wife, she may have a differing opinion, but as of now, I'm in.
Well, we might be taking you up on that. Our travel budget is quite extensive here at the Richest Men in Town, so
I believe it.
We'll certainly
let's
I believe that.
Let's get it 8:00 in the morning with our marketing team so we can get these talking points on this. What is this thing called? This TikTok thing? Maybe we can do something there. Okay, so Gordon, like, you got to talk to me, because you're going from nobody in my family's gone to college to like I'm slinging burgers at Red Robin to I'm going to Texas.
Yeah, so I went to a school my whole life, K through 12, actually, which probably puts me in a very low percentage of people, certainly in the United States. And they used a certain curriculum. Well, that curriculum publisher had a small Bible college on the same campus as where they, where their corporate offices were. This was in Louisville, Texas. Louisville, Texas, for those not familiar, 35 miles north of Dallas, straight up Highway 35 or State Route 35. And so I had heard about this, had actually had a friend that had gone there previously. At that same time, 18-year-old, Gordon, four-wheel driving his 1984 Subaru Brat. And
Subaru Brat.
You're welcome.
Throwback. That is good.
Brown in color.
We've gone MCI cards, just water beds, and now the Subaru Brat makes its appearance.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Poop Brown marvel the Brat was
1,000%. Poop brown and rusted out on the lower section of the doors because it had been on the coast.
Nice.
So perhaps some of your listeners in those areas will know about these things. But I'll tell you, you're 1,000% right, because that thing could out 4x. I had two of my best friends had brand new Chevy Tahoes at the time. Rich kids, am I right? And dude, I could out 4x those dudes everywhere. Palo Cedro, before Simpson was on their property, we were getting stuck out there all the time. I mean, all that stuff. So anyway,
my money. Okay, hold on. This is just this is the way that I've lived my life. This is the way I've raised my kids, right?
Okay.
New Tahoe or character building Subaru Brat. You got to go Brat.
Amen.
Amen.
I also agree with that philosophy, Mike, but mostly it's a matter of budget. than anything. So
it's the things we tell ourselves so we can sleep at night, right?
yeah.
Yes.
I'm giving my kid a beater because I don't want him to ever wonder if people are friends with him because of his car.
Totally.
I've told my kids the rite of passage is walking to your first period class and smelling like gasoline is an important part of growing up.
Yes. Ace Ventura was so it was so poignant, even though I didn't know that word at the time. It intersected my life at the perfect time, because I would get off of work at about 2:30 a.m. from Red Robin. This would be in the winter. Things would be iced up. None of the electrical on the car would work. It would only work whenever it decided to. So I'm literally driving from Red Robin to Riviera Drive on the west side with my head stuck out of the car, trying to just make sure I could see and not hit anyone or any property.
See,
so
that is character building defined.
You know what, man? Now when I'm taking my kids to school and I turn the seat heaters on, I appreciate it. Like, it is not lost on me. It is not lost on me, man. I'm grateful. God has been good to me. He's been good to me. So
well,
yeah,
Gordon,
you're absolutely right.
Gordon, I sent my kid off to college in a 2006 Mazda MPV, and the visors were lazy and sagging.
Yes.
So I took a Rapala lure and used it genius. Used the one set of treble hooks to connect to the ceiling and the other one to connect to the visors so that it hung there. Bro, I just sold that car just like that. I sold it as is. And the girl was like, I love this. I love what you did here. I'm like,
again, engineering marvel. Come on, guys. Come on.
It was the best MacGyver move I've ever made. You know,
well, AI isn't coming up with that. You know, I mean, come on. That's incredible. That's incredible. I should buy that for my son. We have a kid that's getting close to driving age. I would love to give him a van as his first car. So
that is too funny. I actually did have a full-size van as my first car, just so you know. So there
Yes.
you go.
Oh, not a mini.
No mini.
Are we going like Econoline? What
like,
are we going
yeah, like it was a Chrysler full-size, big sliding door, bed in the back. Never got used by anybody but me.
Check.
So, all right, so there you go.
But the threat was there.
True. You never know. I might, you know.
It'd stall out at every red light, and then you had to panic, you know, and get it going again. So yeah,
So
I mean,
good.
look,
These things build character, right?
Indeed.
yeah. Memory lane, man.
Or trauma. I mean, it could be trauma, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, as I was
I guess-
reflecting on character, I just remembered all the most embarrassing moments of my life.
So good. Oh,
I love it, man. So
I used to drive a Dodge Aries K car. I don't know if you guys are aware
I don't even know about that.
of
No, I
how
think they
beautiful
only-
those were.
they only sell those in Tijuana, I think.
I used to actually when
Imports
I
only.
met when I met my wife and started dating her, I was immediately concerned because she lived in a really nice neighborhood with a very steep driveway, and
Okay.
I had to actually do like a bobsled run to get up her driveway. Right,
Ah.
my car didn't actually have enough power to get up the driveway, so the second I turned onto her street, I had to punch it and give it so that I would have enough momentum through the chute to turn up to the driveway. And sometimes she would be there waiting for me, and I would almost get up there, and the car would literally start to go backwards, and I'd have to start all over. Right.
Best practice, Mike
So
Freeman,
good.
is you park your junker behind a semi-nice car and walk up, and you get out in front of that nice car before anyone sees you. That's the best practice.
But here's the thing: never ever was there any time when the thought came to me that my girl is with me because of my ride. You know,
Well,
You knew it was for you, man.
that's
It's for the
it.
internals. For the internals.
wow. Oh man, that's
Okay,
good stuff.
so we are now in Louisville, Texas.
Sorry, guys. I told you, dude. This will be my last appearance. Um,
No, I love it.
yeah.
I love it.
So, you know, it was one of those things where, again, I can't say that there was some distinct moment, but it was like, you know, it's time to move on to whatever the next thing is. Plus, I'm remembering thinking about this now, I did have that, like, I have to get out of Reading, like this place is no place for anyone, especially an 18-year-old kid. And the only thing I knew outside of Reading was my mom's family, who lived in Chino. Crazy story about my grandma. Lived in Chino Hills, just around the corner from Snoop Dogg, for about the last 11 years of her life, which was pretty rad. Never saw him. But I just tell people that, put it in my resume, my bio.
As it should be. It should
absolutely.
be prominently displayed.
I start with that. That's what I start with. So I get pulled over by a cop. I'm like, hey man, like, I don't want to get you in trouble, but but just realizing, like, and then this, again, because of the connection to my school, and the curriculum they used, that, okay, this is an option to get out of Texas, to get out of Reading. And so I took that option. Again, my friend he lived in Oregon and came through Reading to get to Louisville. So we had been talking, and he's like, hey, I'm coming through, whatever it was, mid-August, 1995. And, and I was kind of like, okay, this is the thing. Am I going to do it? I was so on the fence about whether I was going that my mother had already written the $750 check to enroll me the following Monday at Shasta College. So something she thought about. I didn't even think about going to Shasta College, but ended up making that move, saying yes to Texas. And man, I'm so glad I did. Had just a great year experience. My roommates there, and some of the guys that, still stay in touch with them today, phenomenal guys. Just great times. We all loved basketball. And the men's dorm horseshoed around the gym. And we had the raddest men's dean. And so he didn't really care. His name was Rick Porter, and he didn't care. We could play basketball all night long for all he cared. So as long as we were handling responsibilities, he didn't care if we played basketball. And so that was a lot of that first year, which was really awesome. And then, my life changed for the better in August of 96, because the lady who would become my wife came to school there. So, if you have any sense of faith, or that, God has ordered things in your life, this kid who thought he was somehow going straight to the NBA from a Christian high school of probably 80 people in Redding, California, to being in Texas, just as that dream kind of went away, and reality still hadn't set in, but put in a position to be able to meet my wife. I'm kind of an all or nothing guy, which, has its strengths and its weaknesses. But the third day I knew her, really felt like she was the one for me. And I just told her. She happened to be dating someone from her hometown at the time. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Like, I'm not worried about it. Like, this is all going to turn out exactly as I wanted. About a week later, she broke up with him.
So you're 3 days in.
Yep. Met her 3 days.
And you are looking at her saying, when are you done with that? Because it's gonna be this.
1,000%.
It's like three. Let me say three things: Brat, JC Penney suit, double Western. Boom. Deal is sealed, right? It's done.
If anyone wants to write about me, I'm just gonna be like my agent. The person that my spokesperson is Tyler.
Yeah.
So if you need to know about me,
I got you.
You gotta talk to him.
Every girl grows up listening to Taylor Swift and coming up with lists, and the list is probably like that, Tyler.
It probably
1,000%.
But I have a question though, Gordon. It was the choice. It sounds like you were kind of on the fence heading out to Texas, right? But was the decision to go to Texas, was that based on the curriculum? Was that based on the fact that it was a Bible school? How did faith weigh into that decision? Because you were at a Christian high school. Now you're going to a small Bible college, or I don't know if it's a Bible college, but
it is
religious college. Okay. How does faith weigh into that?
Honestly, I don't even think it did. If I'm being honest about it, it was my ticket out of Reading. So,
Mhm.
it was one of the two things that I knew that could get me out of this place that, it's what's kind of funny is I had family in Visalia, and I can remember visiting them in Visalia at the time, and it had a stop sign and one KFC. That was literally the main drag in Visalia, in the early '90s, and here I am in Reading, which was a thriving metropolis compared to Visalia at the time.
Looking down your nose at
And I
Visalia.
just, I couldn't be here if I'm here one more day, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was more it. It just was one of the two places that I knew, and it just kind of converged in a way where I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing, so.
Yeah. So how long till you end up back in Reading?
So meet my wife, and a little more to that story. So
Mhm.
they start the school year at the lake, this lake house with sea-doos and all this kind of stuff. And she was actually sitting on the floor in the house, writing a letter to, whoever this man friend was, that was of no concern to me. And I grabbed, I don't even know her. I literally do not know her. First time her and I are seeing each other, I grabbed the notebook from her, take her pen, and I write something like, "If you hurt her, I'll kill you," and then just hand it back to her and walk off. And talk about today, restraining orders and, all kinds of other things.
Yeah, you're canceled for sure.
Dude, 1,000%.
Now, is
so
this a move that many a lady has experienced, or are you finding a new gear with this girl?
No, you're pulling on a thread that is some of the more unsavory days of Mr. DeWitt. He was a bit of a player, which intersects the story again, actually, at college. If she were telling this story, once we start hanging out,
It's
that
probably
first
all that rap
week,
music you're listening to.
dude, with with my kicker subs, and my Ford Tempo, doing the cruise, exactly.
If I can, Gordon,
ruin me.
I mean, people listening to this podcast already heard Brat, JC Penney suit, double Western, and immediately they're thinking player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. Exactly. Typecast. Like typecast. You know what I mean? Like, don't even need a casting agent. Like, we got your guy. We know what talent you need. And he's in this this a-hole right here. Sorry, I don't know if I probably shouldn't have said a-hole. But I do look back and think, gosh, the Lord is good to keep me around. But as I start hanging out that week, because we start going on walks like after class and talking, and
So
when
she's
she
feeling
goes
it.
in,
She's feeling it.
She's cool. I mean, plus we're both California kids, so that's a thing.
Yeah.
Some of these kids are, it's a Baptist college, so not all of these kids are, not that we were crazy, but West Coast people, man, we're just kind of laid back and chill. We're not exactly that stuffy, whatever. But probably on the fifth night or something like that of knowing each other, the end of that week, she goes into her dorm, and the women's dean says, "Congratulations, you're fresh meat." And so she found out a whole lot about me in the previous year of my life that evening. Those were some interesting conversations between her and I the next few days. But like I said, I was a changed dude. If the eyes were out looking, the unavailable sign was on after meeting her. And so, that
like
kind of started.
Service. Boom, done.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like she's it. And so, and that's, been, outside of Christ, that's been the best decision I've ever made. Was not screwing up my opportunity with her. So
what's
she
her
actually,
name? What's her name?
Her name is Lynn Ann.
Okay.
So she actually went home after one semester, and we ended up spending. She came up to Reading because I came home for Christmas, and then we ended up driving down. So she spent some time here with my family. And then we drove down to Los Angeles, which worked out because my mom could see her mom and brothers and sisters, and spent some time with her family.
And
just
Snoop.
and Snoop,
Right.
two stories that will bless you that may not make the podcast. One was, this happened to, as I said, this was during the Bulls dynasty. Obviously Michael was off chasing his baseball dreams. But I decided to tell all the kids. So we've got my grandma who lives in Chino, and then it was Chino Hills, because you gotta make everything
Dress it
nice
up
and
a little bit.
classy.
Yeah.
Dress it up, exactly. And then we got my mom's brother who lives a block north of Disneyland in Anaheim. So these are the two settings. I'm playing basketball with some kids. Well, if you remember, John Paxson or Jim Paxson. I'm getting old, guys. Sorry. This is post-COVID infection. So Jim Paxson is the guard for the Chicago Bulls, or shooting guard. And so I start telling people that I'm his son, and do this not only again in Chino, but also in Anaheim. Nothing ever came from that. Not sure that they believed me, but I decided to lie to them so that I could feel more important. I should have been more in tune with what I was, what I was trying to do there. And then so we go down. By the time we get down to LA, it is going to be Christmas Day. We're going to spend that. I'm going to be with my mom and my grandma and them. She's going to be with her family. But the day after Christmas, her entire family, they've had a reunion. Her entire family, they are going to go to Knott's Berry Farm. And so she talks her mom into buying me a ticket. Her dad is very displeased. I'm at a stage of life where I have a son-in-law, and then I'm about to have another son-in-law here in a few months. So I have great empathy now for my father-in-law. We talk often, and he laughs at me because I'm now suffering in ways that I made him suffer. But I made him suffer in the ultimate way, in that we go to Knott's Berry Farm. A majority of the family is displeased with my presence. They're kind of given the like, who is this guy? And not just like, this is the guy interested in Lenan, but who is this person in our group that we don't even know his name? So I'm spending a majority of the day walking behind the group. The only person talking to me is her grandpa. Great dude. And so we end up going to watch Snoopy on Ice, which I didn't realize this was going to be my defining moment. So Tyler, get ready to add to your list.
All right.
I didn't realize this was going to be kind of my defining moment in the family that still gets referenced today. It actually was referenced today by someone in our family. So again, my dad drives truck pretty much my whole life. I mean, I've kind of raised myself. Like, I had one mentor guy in church, but I mean, we're only, crossing paths every whatever. Plus I'm a teenager. So am I really listening to anything an adult says? I want to marry his daughter. So I see nothing preventing me from moving this forward. So we're sitting, it's about 1:10 in the afternoon, Knott's Berry Farm, sitting in Snoopy on Ice. So we've got my father-in-law here to my left, got Lenan to my right, and then her sister is sitting next to her, and brother-in-law. So I lean over in the middle of Snoopy on Ice, something like this. Rick is his name. He's right here. And I say, so what do you think about me marrying your daughter? I've probably said 8 words to Rick in my life. I hear a gasp over here to my right, which is her sister. I know enough to know that the gasp isn't exactly a positive thing. It wasn't exactly like, Tyler, much like I thought I was God's gift walking into people's lives, or, signing Lenan's notebook.
Right.
I'm all of a sudden, it's reality. You're an idiot. You're a brat who drives a Subaru. All of this stuff is like becoming a laser focused. I'm realizing everything. He was very kind to me, because I would have probably put my hands on me if I were in his situation. But he just leaned over and said, we'll talk about this later. Well, if you remember earlier in the story where I said that Grandpa was walking and talking with me. Well, from this point until about 10 p.m. after my little outburst, no one talk to me. I walked the entire rest of the day behind the group, about 10 steps by myself. Her dad had her pulled up with her, talking to her, probably wondering how she could bring such a fool into her life. Ate by myself. They had a blue Ford Aerostar. That was the quietest car ride from Knott's Berry Farm to Glendora, California, that I've ever been a part of in my 47 years. To make it even worse, they got a little bit of a flat tire and needed to stop at a gas station and put air in a tire. So that only made it longer. I mean, this is like nightmare scenario, not the things you hear online that young people are saying today, like a legit nightmare scenario.
But to be fair, Gordon, I mean, if in my mind, if you're going to pick a time to talk to your future father-in-law, like Snoopy on Ice is my top 3, right? I got like 3.
Like I set this up, guys.
Exactly.
I mean, this is like me coordinating a dance mob, or something in a mall. Like, come on. How are you not appreciating this?
Exactly. This is perfect planning in my mind.
Exactly.
So there had been some delusion that you were enjoying going into Snoopy on Ice, thinking this is going to go well.
Yep. And then I, if I've ever uttered the words, oh, you know what, by the end of Snoopy's performance, I had thought such things.
Well, I mean, honestly, it's probably more of an indictment on your father-in-law than it is on you. Let's be fair.
Don't you know what I did for you and your daughter? So then, to make matters worse, we pull into their driveway, and he turns around to me and says, "Stay in the car." And I was like, and that's when
that seems like a Yellowstone scene. Like they're gonna make him go away,
which he had every right to. I mean, again, as a dad of daughters who are in this age now, he had every right to. I gave him every right to do this, and he should have just been cleared. No manslaughter charges, nothing. He actually was very kind to me. He takes everybody in, which I'm sure involved his wife saying, "Stop being such a jerk," to me, type thing, or "Dad, please be nice. Don't put your hands on him." But he was very nice to me. He took me in one of the bedrooms finally and said, "Imagine, that someone came to your door. You don't know them. They come to your door and they ask you for the keys to your car. Ask me what my dream car is." And I don't even know what I said. I think I said like a Mercedes S55 or something like that at the time. And he's like, "Well, what would you say?" I would be like, I would again, clueless. I'm like, I would never give them the keys, not realizing that, hey, ding dong, he's talking about you. Right. And so he's like, "Well, she's my most prized possession, and you just showed up at my door asking for the keys." And he's like, this is not how the world works, or how, my family's going to roll. And so basically he asked me to go away for a year, told me I could come back in a year. And so did end up going back to Texas, finishing out that semester, worked through the summer, and then moved to LA in August of 97. And then we ended up getting married July 98. And we ended up moving back to Redding in January of 01 and have been here ever since. So we had one daughter, our oldest daughter, in Southern California, and then had the rest of our kids up here. So, but yeah, since January of 01, we've been back up here.
Wow. So you're exiled for a year, right?
Exiled for a year, man.
And then is it a fresh slate when you come back?
When I come back, he was much more willing to engage me in conversation and acknowledge my presence. So I will say, in my defense, I did call several times during the fall of that semester. He happened to be remodeling some furlough housing for a denomination in Southern California, so we never connected. It wasn't exactly cell phone time back in 1995. So
Right. Yeah.
I did make some effort to talk to him beforehand. We just never connected. So
Yeah.
So you are here in, somewhere in there, college finished.
Did 2 years of college, and then decided to get my MR degree. So and get married. So still yeah, that was it. I'm like, man, we're gonna be married, we're gonna have a family, I'm going to work. So and what that looked like was a Staples electronics manager for Staples, Azusa, California.
Oh,
So,
good old Azusa.
prestigious, like what you dream of as a child.
So where does faith become real for you? I mean, Tyler asked the question, you go Christian all the way through Christian high school, Bible, college. Where does it become real for you?
Yeah, Lynanne was and her family certainly catalysts in kind of that real connection to faith and deepening of that. Her parents were pastors in Azusa, for 30 years. So pretty much once we got married, we started serving in kids ministry, started working with the church. Her church did a tree lot, before it was kind of the cool thing to do. We loved working that together. And it just was more around, church, but also okay, I'm starting to see, even though I had, been saved as a young kid, which is quite a story that I probably should have told. If you've ever heard of the band Petra, so this is going backward. I apologize.
No, that's okay.
As my linear mind does not like these types of things. But so I'm a freshman in high school, obviously, as I said, and you referenced going to Christian school. So there's a band, which is still my favorite Christian band ever, a band named Petra. And they had a guitarist, his name is Bob Hartman. And two unique things about Bob Hartman: he always used a gold microphone, could have been gold plated, but it looked gold from the audience. And then he would always give a gospel invitation at every concert. So freshmen in high school, they're going to be in Vacaville, California. So whatever the Chevy equivalent to the Ford Econoline is the van I was in, traveling down with my youth group. And nice. So we're at the at the concert. It comes time for Bob to, I don't know. I don't know these things are happening, but it's time for him to give the gospel presentation. There's probably about 2,000 people in the room. And literally in that moment, you hear people say these things and you're kind of like, okay, that's cliche, or that's okay, whatever. Like, you're weird. You're just putting words and feelings and emotions, these things. It was literally like he was talking to me. It was like, I can still see him right now in my mind's eye. And it's like there was no one else in that room. It was crazy. Prayed with him to receive Christ. And but then again, that's just like, oh, cool. I think I told my parents when I got home, but I mean, it's whatever. We weren't really a church going family. I pretty much went to church by myself my whole life. My parents never went. And so they actually didn't end up getting saved until, probably 2010, 2011, something like that. But anyway, so, I'm obviously around church more, now that I'm married to my wife and I'm around her family. I actually think sometime after my sophomore or junior year, I think I had felt a call to ministry, but again, I didn't really know what that was and didn't really have somebody in my life that, could give any explanation or direction to that. And so, we're working, I think we're leading like 4th and 5th grade or something like that. We're the volunteer overseers of, planning curriculum, which, 23 years old, like, should I be over anything? I can't even manage myself. And, they put me in charge of these poor kids. So, and an opportunity comes up to, through some friends of ours, hear about a youth pastor position in San Dimas, California, which is just like one city over to the east.
San
from where
Dimas
Zeus
high
is.
school football rules, right?
Check.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Exactly. Bill and Ted definitely put San Dimas on the map, man. So, and just a weird tie into earlier, Snoop Dogg coaches a little league football team on most Saturdays of the season at San Dimas High. So just to bring all that full circle for
There
you.
you go.
So for some reason, I'm just like, okay, I kind of get along with kids. And, one of the people at the church happened to be my wife's teacher in high school. And so it just kind of converged where I'm like, sure, man, I don't mind hanging out with kids. Have no idea, the focus at the small Bible college was speech, music, and Bible. I mean, those are like the three courses. And again, no degree from them, but take the courses, but I've kind of been around church for quite a while. And again, I just kind of like teenagers, and hey, we'll give you an extra $800 a month if you mow all the lawns. And, just this total ministry starting out thing. And so we ended up doing that for about a year and a half. And then actually came back to my wife's parents' church. Her dad was diagnosed with cancer. And, we just felt like it was time for us to just, be there and serve and help pull ministry forward there. So we were there pretty much for the rest of our time, another year and a half or whatever before we moved to Reading. So but yeah, faith had kind of like become a reality during that season of time, those really late 90s. But again, my wife and her family, I mean, they're the catalyst for that. I didn't even know what I didn't know, so.
But I like that, Gordon, you talk about, it's interesting because we have this conversation a lot with people, right? About faith and when that faith becomes your own personal faith. And we hear all kinds of different stories. And the reason I like that questioning or that examination is because I think that there's an idea that conversion or those experiences have to be dramatic and earth-shattering. And I think that you're there. I love your story about just being there and doing it and living it and being around people. And then you start to think back on your experiences and you say, well, this is my faith, right? And it becomes your faith. And I think it's important that we have that conversation, because I think when people are looking to, is God involved in my life? And if they can't point to a clap of thunder or a bolt of lightning, then maybe the thought is it's not. He's not in my life.
Audible
right?
voice. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. And, my story is certainly one of this profound salvation moment. That, I haven't even thought about it in a long time. Actually, the anniversary is coming up. It was November 10th, 1990. That's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Thank you guys for having me on, just so I could remember that.
Mm-hmm.
But and then life doesn't really, I couldn't connect, and I think this was my poor view of God, or my lack of knowing who God was and what the Bible said. But, I looked at who I was and how I behaved and the choices I made and what I thought God expected of me. And those were just incongruent. So it was more like, we all have that thing in our garage or in our closet that we bought that we thought we needed, but we haven't touched in 5 years. And faith was certainly that for me at that point of, there's no congruence here. Like there's no intersection of who I am and how I'm living and how this fits with what God has for me. And his plan for my life. Although, he was faithful to be there the whole time, wait for me to intersect a moment in my life where I could figure that out. That really, that all changed. And it became real when our son was born, our oldest son. His name's Tanner, and he's 21 now. But he almost died at birth. He, obviously fast forwarding the story a bit, suffers from some chronic medical illness and some disabilities. But man, that really brought my wife and I to a bond that I'm not sure that we would have had we not gone through the experience that we did. And being able to be his parents, but just those, him almost dying at birth, all the medical things. I mean, it's been a life of walking by his side. It's been my greatest honor to be his dad, and for her to be his mom, and to feel like we had to fight for every step of it, and advocate for him because he couldn't for himself. So and then just to witness him living his life to whatever extent he could, and just the special way that God makes these kids, and the way that he puts them together. He's suffered some significant challenges. So one of the things that he was born and gets diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and we have a dynamic God moment in 2010, December of 2010, where he find out he has sleep-induced epilepsy, but actually finding that out saved his life. He was scheduled for a surgery to have his hips redone in January 2011. But had he gone on that operating table, he would have died, just because we didn't know. And there's not a pediatric disciplined anesthesiologist here in our area. And then, but in 2016, he gets diagnosed with Crohn's. And, I think what people appreciate about me, and Mike, you don't have to reveal your sources, but people's recommendation is that, the DeWitts are just kind of the DeWitts. We're just kind of who we are. We're not, seeking Instagram fame. We're not trying to start a podcast now. We're not trying to put our life out there ever as if we'd figure anything out. My wife and I joke often that we're going to, write a book about the don'ts and don'ts of marriage and parenting. But I think one of the things that people can relate to with me and her is that, I became really disillusioned with God, when Tanner was diagnosed with Crohn's, and that, like, how much more are you going to ask him to carry? Like, this is the tolerance level has been exceeded. And made me think about the times that I was like, man, I wish God would just give it to me. But then, and sometimes realizing, like, man, if he gave it to me, I would be bitter, angry, not much fun to be around. And yet here's my son who carries all these things and just has immense joy, brightens every room that he goes into, and we've been very fortunate to walk with a lot of families over our time, whether them, trying to figure out IEPs in the school system, or insurance, or just what life looks like. Like, how do you, give appropriate attention to the rest of your kids when you're in the hospital for 3 months at a time with one of them, and then, the guilt and shame of parenting, of missing your daughter's senior year of volleyball. I mean, just, all of these things. And so we've kind of just lived this somewhat publicly, not because we're anything or, have achieved anything, but we live in a small town. Anyway, I went far down his life, but, that him being born and just realizing, like, okay, I do believe that God holds all this together, and I need his strong hand to hold me up, to hold my wife up, and to protect our son, and protect his life. And so that was really, again, one of those, people say, like, watershed moments. I don't even know what that means. I hope I'm using that way out of context, so people are like, clearly this dude does not have a college degree.
I love what you said about, I mean, what did you called it, a dynamic God moment.
Sounds good to me.
I love that. I mean, I think that well, and I can personally relate, Tyler, listening to Gordon, it reminds me of that scene in Cinderella Man when he's all prayed out.
Yeah. Right.
Like, every once in a while, it's like, really, can a guy get a break?
Yeah.
Right. Can my son get a break?
But at the same time, Mike, it reminds me of that Jordan Peterson quote, right? That says, the purpose in life is to find the heaviest load that you can and carry it,
Yeah.
And I think, sometimes I hear, or we look at someone else and the load that they're carrying and we think, gosh, that's impossible. I don't know how they do it. But I think these discussions are so important because, we all know this. The fact of the matter is that everybody's dealing with something, right?
Yep.
Everybody's got a load that they're carrying. And I think if we're open enough and honest enough about the loads that we carry and the struggles that we have when we carry those loads and the successes that we have when we carry those loads, right, we can kind of buoy each other up in the middle of it. So I agree.
1,000%.
It's so
when
important.
it sounds like the DeWitts have found a source of solace or comfort in helping others walk in it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been invited into some sacred moments in people's lives. We're well acquainted with pain and suffering, and loss, and some really hard things that we've been privileged that the Lord's asked us to carry. But you're absolutely right, Tyler. I mean, I can remember a time, maybe we're married 6 or 8 years, and I'm just like, man, why is this so hard? And feeling so alone. And my brother-in-law, who I, just in my mind was this, stalwart Christian who everything, went well for him, and their marriage was so strong and thriving, and him saying, I can remember it as if it's happened right now. I can remember him saying, man, dude, marriage is hard. And man, it was just that bit of vulnerability from him, literally that phrase that okay, all right, this isn't, I'm not screwing this up. My wife isn't screwing this up. We're not incompatible.
Right.
But these things are really happening. And that, I think that's what's made, again, I'm embarrassed saying the words that are about to come out of my mouth, but I think that's what, and I don't exactly know the word. I think that's why people, have seen our story or met my wife or met me. We just kind of live without filters, but in a positive sense, not, like I'm just out, cussing everybody up and down the street, or, getting blackout drunk. We're doing neither of those things.
That's not quite our target guest.
Yeah, exactly.
Profile.
Exactly. I'm going to see if there's a Carl Jr. in prison, Mike. Like, stop trying to slow me down, man.
Well, can I take two things that you guys have said and just kind of weld them together here?
Please.
This idea of Jordan Peterson's quote and finding the load and carrying it. But every once in a while, the strong man, it gives us a little bit of heart and courage when we see the strong man tremble.
A moment of weakness. Absolutely.
Well, right. As he's holding this load,
to
see a little bit of strain and a little bit of shake and to say, oh, that's not superhuman. That's real.
That's the struggle.
That's the struggle.
And I think your brother-in-law saying marriage is hard, it's that idea of giving permission, right? It's like, hey,
1,000%.
you can feel this and you can still do this, right? I mean, it's difficult and we're all feeling that, but I and I appreciate those moments I've had in my life too, where you feel isolated in your struggle.
So isolated.
Right? And then someone comes along and says, man, I'm going through this thing. And you're like, oh, seriously? Like, I'm so glad to hear that someone else is feeling that with me. I think there's a permission granted.
But Gordon, you had no idea, going back to Texas and going back to that girl, you had no idea what you had there.
Yep.
Right? I'm going to speculate here a little bit, but when you say that you're well acquainted with pain, suffering, and loss, you've probably seen, and I love this word that you used when you talked about the bond that you have with her going through this. You've probably seen this break other people's bonds.
Right. You're 1,000% right.
So do you ever, in your heart of hearts, in your quiet time, do you ever realize, the mother load that you found when you found your wife, but why does the strain bond us together when the strain breaks others?
Yep. I don't know that we've thought much about that, but we've mentioned to each other several times of how our bond actually intensifies in chaos. When she's up here with the kids. And now Tanner's had, quite a few years now without being, having long stays in the hospital. But, when she's up here handling business here, managing this, I'm, in the hospital with him, or she's in the hospital with him and I'm managing this. It's kind of like when things just spin up into, something people don't want to, you never choose to go through, that our bond gets stronger. We've never really, dove much into that.
I wouldn't analyze
it's
it, right?
It's a tremendous gift. It's a tremendous gift. And, everything, you're right. You used a great term, motherload. Like I had no idea how God was outfitting a partner for me, that would help carry a load that, could break a single person. But her unique talents and giftings and strengths, and my unique talents and giftings and strengths, and how that, brought us together to lead, the family that God's blessed us with. I mean, that's, you might be able to get a tagline, an audio tagline for your show out of this, but I mean, that's like true definition of wealth. You know what I mean? That God would give you, a woman or a partner in your life, that is equipping you for what is ahead in accomplishing his purposes and what he's asked you to do on this earth. That's the real definition, to me anyway, of being the richest men in town. And I think that, we're able to have really honest conversations with each other. I think that's a difference maker, in the sense that she's okay if I'm disillusioned with God. She's okay. I mean, honestly, I just told the story yesterday. We're actually, serving a family right now. But I told this friend yesterday, that I didn't pray for 8 months after Tanner got diagnosed with Crohn's, because I was just like, this is BS, man. Like, I don't know what you're doing up there. Clearly, some form of dementia or something else has landed upon you, because you're not paying attention to my son. You're not paying attention to what you've already asked him to carry. And so, I think, speaking of vulnerability earlier, that being able to be real with people about actual emotions that, people of faith experience,
Sure.
it is so reassuring to people, that they've not messed up or gone too far, or that God has no interest in them. Because younger Gordon, there's no intersection of how they're living, and who they think he is. And I've been very fortunate that, God has shaped my life in a way that, I was finally able to see some congruence and some intersection between that. And he's certainly been, I mean, it's him and then my wife, that has kept us in the fight, because we had many reasons and many opportunities to get out of the fight. I heard somebody tell me one time that, a couple divorcing is just a couple that's tired, and then add in whatever, tired of fighting, tired of whatever. And the Lord has been very fortunate. We've been very fortunate, and the Lord's been very good to us to hold us together, through some really, really dark times. But again, that vulnerability of just like, and not to bury the headline here, but I was a pastor at the time, and I'm not praying for 8 months. I'm disillusioned with God. And I'm just like, this whole God of the Bible, good stuff, he's forgotten all that, he's forgotten his promises to us. And I think people being able to see the reality of life, and seeing some, again, not to reuse the word, but some convergence of someone else's experience with what they might be experiencing. Absolutely. How the Lord uses those moments, to keep people in the fight.
Yeah. I love
So how
that.
do you come back? If you don't mind me getting too personal.
No. I'm going to say one thing. One thing would be the church, and I don't mean the organization, which this is what everybody says. I mean the people, like, so dumb. So sorry. I hate cliches, in case you couldn't tell. Sorry.
Cliches
and
are
my wife and
cliches
I,
because they work. So there you
yeah,
go.
exactly. But man, the people of the church that just showed up, I mean, they literally were just the hands and feet of Christ, whether that was, you know, taking care of our kids. Like, you know, when he's in the hospital in 2016, he's in the hospital for almost 3 months. You know, he almost dies the night he gets there. So that whole experience of like, man, we're gonna lose our kid, like the worst imaginable thing for any parent. To him making it through, um, you know, God putting world-class medical care in our backyard, at Stanford, at Lucille Packard. Unreal just how the Lord, you know, sets these things and then, you know, turns a switch on it just the right moment when you need it in your life. Um, so the people of the church, and then, you know, I've always had a strong connection to God. I've always been able to detach Christians saying really stupid stuff to my wife or me. Sorry.
Well, we've all
And
experienced that.
dude, it's like I just want to. My wife's parents are dealing with some health challenges right now, and some of the stuff that I like, I wish I was released to just go put hands on them, but not in any sort of like positive or affirming way, but like a stopping behavior way. And mainly they're the stupid things they say.
Yeah.
So I've always, you know, kind of had a strong, I've just been able to detach from that. And so knowing like, okay, God's good. You know, one of the probably two biggest things in my walk is worship music, you know, which I'm sure for all the Bible scholars out there, they're disappointed, or any Calvinists, they just shed a tear. But, you know, worship has been there's always been that song or a lyric. You know, there's a song right now that since about June 2021 has meant so much in my life. And then nature, you know, just reconnecting
hold on, you
with
can't
God.
leave us hanging. What's the song?
Oh gosh. I'm gonna mess up her name. But I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up and tell you. But the bridge of that song says that, I'm gonna get emotional talking about it, but the bridge of that song says that the enemy thought he had me, but Jesus said, "You are mine." And man, that just there was a moment in that specific period of time that was yeah. I'm not yeah, I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, the Lord kept me here, which was positive. Which, you know, I'll be forever grateful. And that song just, man, you know, as you all know, you know, the darkness was swirling. Yeah, anyway, that song has meant so much to me. So probably those three things, excuse me, being able to detach, you know, stupid people and the stupid things they say, and the stupid things that they, you know, whatever the word is that they say God said, but he didn't, or that the Bible says that he didn't. So strong relationship with him and knowing who he really is. And then, you know, being able to connect with him in nature. And then worship, you know, those were kind of the things that kept us. Yeah, the Lord, our story is a story of God, you know, even though I think he's forgot, or he's given up, or he's ran out of time and he's sleeping, he's tired, you know, has just been his hand of faithfulness. He being slow, you know, there were times I needed to be fast and it was not fast. But it was moving. I thought it was sitting still, but it was moving. So
yeah. What it sounds like you guys have some experience.
And now my dog's gonna bark for a moment because my son's home. So I apologize if that's jacking up the audio.
That's okay. How do you you guys are probably experienced with this question. How do you help somebody deal right now? If somebody's listening right now,
yep,
and they're going through it, and stuff swirling around them, what would you say to them?
Man, that feeling's so real. Anybody that tells you that as a person of faith, you shouldn't feel that way, or, that how you feel is real, man. And whatever circumstances that equated to that, whether it was your choices, other people's choices, there is a way back. You haven't gone too far. God has not forgotten about you. One of my favorite verses of all time, I'm probably going to screw it up, but I think it's Psalm 34:18, which says, "The Lord is near the brokenhearted." And man, I've held on to that, so many times when things aren't making sense with our son or our kids, their choices, my choices, my frustrations about the world, trusting and believing that the Lord is near the brokenhearted, and holding that to be true, that's a promise of God, that even when I can't see it, even when I have no ability to measure, that's true. And then, Mike talking about our work lives not intersecting, but then having that one caring person in your life, whether that be a spouse or a partner. I'm very fortunate to have a friend in my life that, what we love most about each other is we can say anything to each other without any response. Now, that doesn't mean that, we tolerate unbiblical behavior, but that means that you can say anything, from the blackest part of your heart to each other. So finding that person, whether that's, a personal relationship or whether that's a professional relationship. I mean, I'm not too proud to say that, my wife and I have probably spent, I don't even know, tens of thousands of dollars several times on counseling. That whole season, about a year out of the last 2.5 years, I was using BetterHelp. I don't hold all the answers, and, I needed someone to guide me. I needed guidance, although I had gotten back to a stable place, I needed someone to guide me out of, where I had found, my soul had found itself.
I love true even when you can't see it.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's something powerful there. And as you're talking, I think of one of my favorite accounts in the scriptures is when Peter starts sinking. Right. And he's trying to walk on water, and he looks around in the storm and he starts to sink. And I love that word, immediately. Yep. Right. Immediately. Like when you distance yourself and you had those feelings of anger and maybe even withdrew from prayer life.
Yep.
Right. When you come back.
Yep.
It's there.
Yep.
Right. Now the timetable for what you want to happen may not be immediate. Yeah. But like I also love what you said too. It's moving. It may not be moving at the pace or the direction that you think, but it's moving in the way that it's going to work out.
Yes. Yeah. 1,000%. I pictured in my mind thinking back about that time, when I cross back by that stump, when it's time for me to go the other direction, the proper direction, God's still sitting on that stump, just waiting, didn't be like, yeah, forget this guy's an idiot. He's stupid, which is true. But, he's just faithfully sitting there waiting, with all the supply that any of us need.
Okay. Well, here comes the tagline, right? Here it comes. We end every episode, Gordon. You've already hinted at it, but we're going to hit you with it again because it's what we do, right? We end every episode with this question as a nod to the George Bailey and the attributes of George Bailey's example that we see in your life. We invite you on a podcast that's called The Richest Men in Town. And we end every episode by asking our guests, what does it mean to you to be considered the richest man in town?
Well, I would say that as a 47-year-old person who has developed maturity because of God and his faithfulness, not because of anything I've done, the economy in which or the monetary item in which I'm wealthy in is far different than what a younger version of me would have thought. I can remember being, 16 years old, Shasta Driving School. The owner of Shasta Driving School takes me to Joe Wong's car garage. I don't know how many cars he has now. He had 26 at the time. And I was envisioning something like that as meaning wealth and being rich in my life. A place where I'd never have to worry about money again.
Hoop dreams,
as we talked about,
hoop dreams.
Oh my gosh, exactly. Being able to buy Jordans and not even worry about my bank account. But as we alluded to earlier, I mean, the Lord just giving me my wife and all that she's been to me. We may actually have to do a part 2, which I don't know if guests can ask for a part 2. There's so much about her hand and God's use of her in my life. I don't know that I could ever spend the resource, the funds in the account of who my wife is in my life and our family's life, and the people that she impacts on a daily basis. We've been very fortunate to, we have 5 kids and a grandbaby and another grandbaby on the way. I mean, just their presence and how God has used them to teach me more than I feel like I've ever taught them anything or modeled anything for them. Man, what a gift. What a gift. And then to be at a place of life where understanding that time is my most precious resource. Before this recording tonight, I was at another meeting. And so my wife and kids went over and dropped something off for our granddaughter. And, I was playfully mad that they got to see her today and spend some time with her because she's just the most incredible human. So what I thought was going to make me wealthy and rich was a bunch of things that actually don't matter. But what really matters and what really makes my life rich is everything that God has given me, despite my poor behavior, attitudes, choices, my attempt to walk life out in my own way or maintain control when I don't control anything. I'm truly, truly rich and blessed, and cannot imagine my life better in any way than how God currently has it.
I love that. I love that answer.
Put a pin in that, brother. We're going to come back and run that part 2.
Part 2. Our booking department already put you on the calendar, so it's fantastic.
I know we only got through 2 kids. There's so much more. There's so much more.
Let's go.
And my wife putting up with me being an idiot. So
well, hey, I appreciate
very kind.
I appreciate you choosing us over a grandchild like that. That is some high ranking, Tyler Gould.
That's what we're going to
Someday
tell
you'll have
ourselves.
to meet her.
She's
so cool. She is so cool.
I got to tell you, Gordon, this has been so much fun. I've loved meeting you. It's been a blast talking to you tonight.
Thank you,
I love your insights and the things that you've taught us tonight. And you made me laugh a couple times, which is always a bonus. So I appreciate that, man.
I appreciate where you took us.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think actually laughter softens things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. Laughter softens things up.
Dude, my wife and I, it's kind of like I've been fortunate in my life to spend some time around veterans and those in law enforcement. And you almost have to laugh in the darkness a bit. You know what I mean? It's kind of like it helps debrief or de-stress, not debrief.
Tell my wife,
but you know what I mean.
If we didn't laugh, would you be sitting here crying?
Oh God, 1,000%. That is 100% true.
Yeah.
That is 100% true. But thank you guys. It's an honor to spend time with you guys. I've been blessed by this time, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Tyler, and to be able to share, what it's like being a drunk person chasing balloons on a cliff, and how the Lord has somehow kept me from falling off the cliff or, injuring myself, and yet has still been good to me, is Yeah, it's an honor, man. It's an honor.
Well, we're definitely going to have you back, man. I really want to continue this conversation. It's been a ton of fun.
Yeah, and the world thinks the world of Gordon DeWitt. The world that I know, like our circles that overlap, they think the world of you, man. So keep going, keep doing
They're
it.
very kind, very kind.
Keep being there for other people, and we really have no idea the impact that we have, right? And
yeah,
you're having some influence, so we appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you,
tell
guys.
Lynn Ann we said thank you for letting us borrow you for a little bit tonight.
I will.
And we'll reconnect soon.
Yeah, screen your phone calls because I'm coming after you.
You know she's clearly delusional. She turned into me as a young man because she said, "I can't wait to hear this podcast," which I'm like, please don't listen to the stupid stuff that I said.
Hey, that'll make one wife listen.
Yeah,
listens. So
I always joke that this is we call this the vault. We can say whatever we want. Our life.
She's never gonna. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah, not taking time out of her day.
That's right.
So good.
It's been fun,
guys.
man. Have a great night, Gordon. Guys. We appreciate you, man.
Hey, Lord bless you guys. See ya.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
To my big brother George, the richest man in town.